the second video lecture on the Unit 7 Diversity Management offered under the MS21 Social Processes and Behavioral Issues course. I'm your instructor in this video and shall be educating you on the concepts of diversity management. I'm Dr. Shalini Garg, Professor of Human Resource Management and HR related inclusion and accessibility issues, and I'm currently employed at Department of Management, Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, Delhi. Now coming back to the unit, as I informed in the previous video that this topic of diversity management and unit is divided into 3 videos of half an hour each that is going to cover all the concepts of diversity management. This is video second. Now in the first video, we got an overview of what is the concept of diversity management, why it is relevant to study diversity management, how can we add value to the organization by studying the concepts of diversity management, and we also developed an understanding about various types of diversity and what could be the types of discrimination that can result in an organization because of diversity, and what are those special concerns that need to be taken into account in order to remove or reduce workplace biases or discrimination. Now in this video, we shall further dwell upon diversity as a broad term and learn that workplace diversity can refer to many characteristics that makes people different from one another. So some such characteristics are the biographical characteristics. Now the most common ways in which employees differ are the biographical characteristics, which can be understood under the following heads: age, gender, race, disability, length of service. Let's look at the first variable. Now please understand that variation in these innate biographical characteristics may emerge as the basis of discrimination against classes of employees. So it is worth knowing how closely related they actually are to important work outcomes. And here, age related diversity needs to be understood. What are the age related characteristics that have to be kept in mind? Now, under age, employers have mixed feeling or perception for aged workers. It is sometimes observed that aged workers bring experience, judgment, strong ethics and commitment to quality. So this particular statement or this particular line in itself says a lot about the aging work population. And it has to be understood that when we talk of diversity, then we just cannot have one typical generation of workers working for us. It will be a mix of baby boomers, Generation Y, Generation Z. So some of them would be retiring, some of them would be on the verge of retiring, some of them would be in the middle-aged career, or some of them would be the fresh recruiters. So they've got to understand how they would be creating a synergetic work environment by understanding each other's differences and adding value to the organization. Now when I talked about the positive aspects of the aging work population, then it is also to be understood that because of their age and the generation they belong to, they are not flexible, they are resistant to new technology, and they do not like change in job design. And they also are not ready to leave the jobs. They seem to think that they have wedded themselves to the job and they are very emotionally attached to their jobs. And the opposite trend is seen amongst the younger employees who are better performers. They like change and diversity and do not feel hesitated to leave or change a job in search of better employment opportunities. And they love challenging work environment, creative assignments, and remaining for a very long period of their careers in a particular job is not suitable to them. They like to experiment. Now, another important aspect under biographical characteristics is gender. Now, under the gender, let's understand that women performs as well as men do at work. Now, as I told you that this particular unit was written at the time when we were not very actively talking about LGBTQ community. So it is advisable for you that you don't look at this gender divide only just between men and women. You also take into consideration the LGBTQ community. But here, since the unit has been written, so I'm going to talk about men and women, but as dynamic readers, as dynamic students, as dynamic citizens, we should be aware of the changes that are taking place in our environment. An LGBTQ community is a new addition to our understanding. I mean, it's not that they were not existing. The new understanding is that now we have to welcome this set of workforce also to our workplaces and talk about their concerns as well. Now, talking about men and women, this issue initiate more misconception, debates and unreported opinions. There are no consistent male-female differences in problem-solving ability, analytical skills, competitive drive, motivation, sociability or learning ability, as was mentioned by Wes, Kemmeler and Dishamer and others in 2003. But they reported a minor difference. And what was that minor difference? They say that women are more agreeable and confirm authority. On the other hand, their male counterparts are aggressive and have expectations of success. Now, evidence from a study of more than nearly 5 lakh professional employees indicates significant differences, with women more likely to turn over than men. This study was done by P.W. Holm, L. Robertson and A.D. Ellis in 2008. Again, just a rider over here that again the units were written some time back. It is advisable that the students, the readers, they please refer to the latest researches going on in the field in order to keep themselves updated. But this was a very prominent study done by Holm, Robertson and Ellis, and that is why it finds its way into this particular unit. Now further, they say that women also have higher rates of absenteeism than men do. Now, on the coming slide, you will find a table that indicates that women show similar job productivity as men at work and both performers similar to each other. Now, if you look at this table talks about the employment status by gender. And it's a 2015 study which was done by ILO and got published in Trends Econometric Models, November 2015. Now, this table indicates similar contribution of women as well as men at work and show nearly similar job productivity, meaning thereby that gender bias should not be creeping in our day-to-day work delegation related decisions, autonomy related decisions, assignment distribution decisions. But I'm also going to repeat that it is not just men and women gender that you're going to look at, you're also going to look at the LGBTQ element. Now let's talk about another important trait or characteristics, that is disability. And let me make a mention once again, as I mentioned in the previous video as well, that disability is the underlying theme of the Sustainable Development SDG Goals 2030, where every particular goal has been formulated keeping in mind this important category of the work population or the important category of section of population. and that is persons with disability. So, to gain employment in condition of decent work, a person with disability in India faces many challenges. It is a common observation, not only by persons with disability, but also by the researchers and academicians or consultancies or research organizations who are doing researches in this area. And one of the important projects that is going on in this direction is my project, which is in the area of assistive technology and artificial intelligence tools for persons with disability, a cross-national study. This is an ICSSR Impress project under the Ministry of HRD that is continuing and is going to wrap up in the year 2021. So here also we are going to explore on this particular aspect, and also to make a mention that Right for Persons with Disability Act 2016 in India should be referred to when we are talking about condition of persons with disability and what are the laws and enactments pertaining to persons with disability, to gain a better idea about the types of disabilities and what are the compliance related aspects or provisions which the organizations have to take into account. Now, despite the persons with disabilities, the representation of people with disabilities in the workplace is not good. It did not increase significantly from 42% in 1993 to 38% in 2002. Again, the latest statistics also have to be referred to, but let me tell you, there's not a very remarkable change or development, or reduction, in the discrimination. Now, India has ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disability, UNCRPD. Persons with disability continue to face many difficulties in the labor market. So that is why India is an important member to the United Nations Convention on Right of Persons with Disability, and they also confirm to the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 as a country. Now, under the Disability Act, now this is the Right for Persons with Disability Act that I was just referring to, the number of disability covered has been increased from 7 to 21. And let me tell you, acid attack victims and people suffering from depression also find way into the types of disabilities. And please remember, I'm just trying to add on over here because this was not a part of the written course material, but needs to be informed to the readers over here that all disabilities are not visible. Some of them are invisible disabilities as well. And that is why this particular characteristic becomes really, really challenging for managers of today. Because out of this already heterogeneous workforce, there are people, if you come to know that there are people who have some invisible disability, that would be alarming for you. So how would you try and make the workplace more accessible and conducive to such people with invisible disability? And when I say invisible disability, I'm referring to the mental disability or intellectual disabilities, and depression is one of them. And not very surprising that most of us are prone to this kind of a disability at some point or the other because of so many stress-related issues and the kind of lifestyle that we are leading. Further, additional benefits such as reservation in higher education, not less than 5%, government jobs, not less than 4%, reservation in allocation of land, poverty alleviation schemes, 5% allotment, etc., have been provided for persons with benchmark disabilities and those with high support needs. Now, besides the above biographical traits or characteristics, there is also pay attention to the following characteristics. Now, tenure. Now, as the term suggests, tenure is your complete duration or the period that you have served in an organization or the experience that you have earned over a period of time. So, tenure expresses as work experience and can contribute towards good employees' productivity. The most recent studies show positive relationship between seniority and job productivity, but that does not in any way undermines the importance of merit. Please understand, seniority is an important consideration, but with merit. Performance criteria or the productivity criteria should not lag behind if you are considering seniority as an important as a parameter for taking workplace related decisions. Now, various studies also express this view that seniority is negatively related to absenteeism. Now, this can be debated, this can be further researched, but majorly the studies are pointing to this kind of a trend. The longer the person in the job, the less likely the chances of leaving a job. Again, the readers or the researchers can explore further on this and can come up with their own conclusions, but so far the studies are indicating to this kind of a trend. Now, when age and tenure are considered separately, tenure is more consistent and stable predictor of job satisfaction than age. So this has been an important research finding. Come to religion, a very controversial, a very important and a sensitive characteristic of diversity. More often, people of different religious faith conflict. The law established strict guidelines and rules to not discriminate on the ground of religion, caste, color, or creed. Now, religious diversity has been characteristic of India for centuries. And you know how many religions, besides the 4 major religions that we talk about, exist. And India is the biggest democracy, we know that. The official government holiday list has holidays on all major religious festivals. So it is the biggest indicator that India values the religions, all types of religions, and their rituals and their customs. And that is why we have holidays which are gazetted holidays, and some of the holidays are restricted holidays which any individual pertaining to a particular religion may take depending upon his or her respective religion-based festivities or customs. Now, faith can be an employment issue when religious beliefs prohibit or encourage certain behavior. Certainly, the trust of the employees can be easily impacted if the religious beliefs related bias enter into the workplace decision making. Talk about other traits or other characteristics. Here we are talking about sexual orientation and gender identity. So employers differ widely in their treatment of sexual orientation. As I said, that some of the organizations, they are readily accepting people with different genders like LGBTQ. They are easily accepting them, giving them work, employing them, and then making the remaining work force ready to adapt to this new kind of workforce. Now, in June 2019, the High Court of Delhi, in a landmark judgment, decriminalized homosexual sex between consenting adults, overturning a 149 years old British colonial law, Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, which described sex between members of same gender as unnatural offence. And it was recently, an order was passed by Supreme Court as well, a ruling was given by Supreme Court as well, that went into the favor of LGBTQ community. You can take a reference of it. Many organizations have considered and adopted various organizational policies to protect employees and reduce discrimination on the ground of sexual orientation. Further, to respect gender identity, companies are increasingly modifying and altering their policies to govern how their organization treats employees who change genders. So here we are talking about the transgender employees. In 2001, only 8 out of Fortune 500 had policies on gender identity. By 2006, that number crossed 124. There's nothing alarming about it. It's a surprise welcome because, and it's a blessing in disguise for most of the organizations who are adding on to the bottom line of the organization by virtue of valuing, diversity as well as diversity in all the biographical characteristics, gender being one of them. So it is an era where we are valuing inclusion and accessibility under diversity to be reaping benefits for the organizations in the long run in terms of creativity, better work performance culture, reduced conflicts, reduced number of complaints, conducive work environment, etc. IBM policy considers this fact and has such policies incorporated in their organizational policies and procedures. Now, in my book, which is also mentioned in the reference section in the end, I have made a reference of various multinational organizations who are developing HR initiatives for inclusion and accessibility. So you can take a reference from there as well. Other biographical characteristics include ability. So this is what I was referring to earlier, that we may be different in terms of our capabilities or capacities, mental capacity, physical capacity. We all are different and unique, isn't it? So ability refers to capacity of a person to perform various tasks in a job. The ability of a person is developed with a mixture of intellectual and physical factors. So let's try to understand the difference between these two abilities, intellectual versus physical abilities. Intellectual abilities are those abilities requires a person to perform various mental activities like reasoning, problem solving and thinking. So here we are talking about the cognitives, the cognitive element of a person's capabilities, where much of the memory job, much of the brain job is required. Thinking job is required. Most organizations give high preference to these abilities, saying smart people attain higher level of education and thus earn more money generally. Though with changing business dynamics and increasing competition, intellectual abilities are important for many jobs. Research on hundreds of jobs have identified 9 basic physical abilities needed in the performance of physical tasks, as mentioned in the study by Fleischmann in 1998. Now you'll find all these physical abilities listed in a table in the next slide, which talks about individuals varying or differing on the basis of possessing these abilities. And you'll find that the high score on one physical ability does not assure high score on another physical ability. A very important lesson. High performance level can be achieved when managers determine what all levels of each of these abilities is required for a job. So we have to go in for a mix of these abilities. Like all physical abilities with a high score cannot generate a high performance. And all intellectual abilities having a higher score cannot deliver a high performance. You have to have a requisite mix of both these abilities to get the best out of employees at the workplace. Please have a look at this table. So you'll find that there are certain strength factors, flexibility factors and other factors. Now, under the strength factors, you have dynamic strength, which is the ability to exert muscular force repeatedly or continuously over time. Trunk strength talks about muscular strength using the trunk muscles. Static strength, ability to exert force against external objects. Explosive strength, ability to expand a maximum of energy in one or series of explosive acts. So if there is a job which requires these strength related factors to a large extent, say for example, if an employee is into a physical, more into a physical job or working with hands where dexterity is required, where this level of strength is required, then we would be finding these factors, we would be considering these abilities to a larger extent, but these alone will not be important. Some level of, intellectual abilities would also be needed. But here we are talking all in all about various factors. So talk about the flexibility factors. Here we talk about extent flexibility is the ability to move the trunk and back muscles as far as possible. Dynamic flexibility, ability to make rapid, repeated and flexible movements. And other factors include body coordination, that is ability to coordinate simultaneous action of the different parts of the body, very important. Balance, ability to maintain equilibrium despite forces pulling off balance, and stamina, which is about the ability to continue maximum efforts requiring prolonged effort over a period of time. These are some of the suggested readings. Robbins is one of the best books to be referred to in the area of OB. Although it doesn't talk about diversity totally per se, but it teaches you to develop a knack of understanding the human behavior. And as humans, we all are different. This is a reference of my book, which has been recently published by Emerald Publishing UK in the year 2019. Talks a lot about what are those HR initiatives required in the inclusive and accessible workplaces. It is an extension of diversity measures only. And these are some of the references that you can refer to. But as I have been advising, please go through the latest researches also in the last 5 years for your updated knowledge on the subject. Thank you.